Hello everybody, welcome to the week 1 review. So this week was basically just an intro to the course and an intro to philosophy in general. We started off this week talking about philosophy and what exactly philosophy is, and we discussed the roots of the word philosophy, or philo, which means love or affection for, and sophia, which means wisdom. So when you put the two together, you get love of wisdom. And from that, we distinguish between wisdom and knowledge, saying that, and I gave the example that, say for instance, if I'm holding a pen in the air and I drop it, I know that it'll fall to the ground, which we said might be a tricky claim. We'll find out a little bit later in the course. But wisdom is going a step beyond that and understanding why the pen falls to the ground. So if we have a conception of the theory of gravity or something like that, we have an understanding. So in that way, you could say that philosophy is trying to go a bit beyond just knowing or having knowledge of something that can happen, and trying to understand the why behind things. And then we went on and we looked at the different fields of philosophy, or the different subfields, and they were metaphysics, which is concerned with the nature of reality, God, free will, things like that, which we'll be looking at pretty in depth in this course during the reality portion of the course. The second subfield is epistemology, and epistemology is a theory of knowledge, how we can know things that exist in the world, whether our beliefs are justified, and whether we can ever say that we know anything about the external world at all. There's ethics, is another big subfield of philosophy, and that's basically it's concerning what we should do. There's a famous philosopher called Thomas Scanlon, and he calls ethics a theory of what we owe to each other and how we treat each other as human beings in society. There's political philosophy, which essentially studies, it's the study of government, but not how government is done like political science would do, but rather why we have government at all, and which types of government are the best. And then the final thing is aesthetics, which is the study of art and the study of beauty. So that's philosophy, and then we just looked at this course and just talked briefly about the things that we'll be covering in the course. The reality part, as I mentioned, is metaphysics, so it's a basic intro to metaphysics. And some of the questions we'll be looking at is, what does it mean for something to exist? What are the conditions for existence? Is existence, does it rely on God? Is God necessary for existence? Who are we? Personal identity. What defines our identity, and how that changes through time. Free will, whether we have free will or not, and if we do, what exactly that looks like. And then the final thing we'll look at is truth, and what we mean when we say truth, and whether that can be justified at all. And the second part of the course is the knowledge part, and that pertains to epistemology. And in that, we're going to start off with some external world skepticism, which is pretty similar to the exercise we did at the end of the first course, the brain in the vat stuff, and showing us, it questions whether we can know anything at all, especially things that rely on our senses, because our senses can often deceive us. And then we're going to try to answer the skeptic by looking at various different theories in epistemology that try to justify it either internally or externally in the world, or just pragmatically even. So those are some of the things that we're going to look at throughout the course. And then we looked briefly, just to sort of get us going in the course, for the kinds of exercises that we're going to be doing at a famous brain in the vat case, which is sort of the matrix case that's pretty familiar to most people. And basically the brain in the vat scenario is just supposed to show that it's supposed to support external world skepticism, showing that we can't really know what exactly is going on in the world. So the scenario basically goes like this. You're sleeping one night, an evil scientist comes in, and the scientist gives you a drug that's going to keep you asleep and it's going to numb you from the pain, and without you knowing it, the scientist removes your brain from your body, and they essentially put it into a vat of nutrients that's going to keep your brain alive. And they also connect your brain to a supercomputer, and this supercomputer, so instead of you actually walking through your daily life and experiencing these things, and the idea is that our perception of reality is just electrical impulses that are sent to our brain by our senses, and basically the supercomputer can simulate all those things. So The argument goes that there's no way that we can prove that we're not a brain in a vat because our conception of reality relies on our senses. And if that's the case, then what's to say that a computer that's hooked up to our brain couldn't simulate those exact things? And if we can't know that, then a lot of our beliefs and a lot of our knowledge claims, for instance, the fact that I'm sitting in this study right now, I can't know because if I don't know whether I'm a brain in a vat or not, then the claim I am sitting in this study right now could be true or could be false, and we just don't know. So if we don't know that, then we can't make claims about actually, even gravity or any theories about the world at all because we just don't know. And that knowledge seems to require a little bit more certainty than we can give now. Obviously there are some counter arguments to the brain in the vat, and we're going to see this a little bit later. We're going to read a paper later on in the course called Brains in a Vat. It's by Hilary Putnam, and he tries to refute the argument that we can't know that we're not a brain in the vat, and he employs sort of a complicated theory of reference to show that basically the statement to say I am a brain in a vat is it's a self-refuting statement. Like, say, it would be, for instance, like me saying, don't believe anything I tell you. And that statement, of course, refutes itself because I just told you don't believe anything that I tell you. So you can't even believe the statement that I say when I say don't believe anything I tell you. So that's something in philosophy that's known as a self-refuting statement, or more technically known as something that's in self-referential trouble. So that was the first class. And then the second class we looked at a very famous essay by Bertrand Russell. It's called The Value of Philosophy. It's from his Nobel Prize winning book, The Problems of Philosophy, in 1950. And basically we were just looking at, why are we doing, is there anything important about philosophy at all, or anything that's even worth doing? And we talked a little bit about Russell. He's definitely an interesting guy. As I said, he could be the most interesting man alive for Dos Equis, the Dos Equis commercials. But he was born into royalty, and his grandfather was the Prime Minister of England, and he was thrown in jail several times for protesting against World War I, and then he actually came out in support of World War II because he recognized that defeating Hitler was more important than being a pacifist in that case, and he spoke out against Vietnam and spoke out against things in the Middle East and things like that. So, yeah, really interesting guy. He was actually, I don't think I mentioned this in class.